Welcome back to the last part from the 7th module. In this part, we will focus on a very important issue, which is the ethics and moral behavior and also transparency during fieldwork. Not only during fieldwork, but also in the moment of the preparation of your fieldwork and also in the post-processing. The aspect of transparency and of research ethics wasn't such a big deal in the first times of ethnography. You probably remember what we discussed about the profile and the the work from the first ethnographers, and well, that I already mentioned that the approach that we take during these days and in presence is a little bit different. Not only regarding the instruments and, well, the methods of conducting a research, a practical research, but also in terms of ethical behavior, after all, with the field participants. Well, so let's have a look at the class and get a little overview on what is waiting for you. As you can see, I named it Researchers' Golden Rules, or Transparency, Ethical Approach, and the Research Ethics Form, which I will introduce at the end of this class. So we will start with a question of what is ethical behavior? So what means to behave ethical and moral in a correct form during your fieldwork? Then we will get over to the golden rules for present researchers, and we will see how to deal and how to behave correctly from the moment of preparing your fieldwork until the publication. Then we will also have a closer look on the so-called sensitive areas, so areas which are not open to public or where you have to deal with further challenges. I will present a little bit the different types of sensitive areas, and we will also see how to deal with challenging situations and how to solve them after all. Last but not least, we will get into a short historical overview and focus on the 3 principles of research ethics. And finally, we will get to the ethical approval and the research ethics form. And I will show some examples and provide you with some templates and make you aware what is important when you fill out such a research ethics form. So, the first aspect that is of capital importance and that you should keep in mind anytime before, during, and after fieldwork is to be transparent and to approach the research and to conduct the research anytime with some golden rules, with some principles which are part of the correct ethical behavior. So the first thing that you should keep absolutely in mind is whatever you plan to do and whoever you like to integrate in your research, if you conduct an interview, if you record a situation or whatever, what is very crucial is that you ask for permission first. This is a kind of golden rule because something that you already know from the methodological overview in the 6 model is that covered observation and covered recording is something illegal, which is not permitted. So if you get in touch with the field participants, with your informants, and well, with anybody who helps you to realize your research and is part of it, is part of the recording and whatever, has to be informed about the documentation and that he or she will appear in advance. This is important because otherwise, well, you may capture and catch a natural situation, but you can really get into problems if the people find out that they were part of a covered investigation and that you may recorded some dialogues, some sequences, some behaviors which they didn't want to make to be published. So this is the first thing and like the first golden rule. Then we will have a look at what is ethical behavior. So what is part of it? First, it means to be transparent. So it means to be open and honest to the participants, to explain them in a clear and understandable way what you are planning to do and how do you do it, and also what will be published. And to be ethical and moral also significates to stick to your promises. So basically, what you explained to them is what you also should do. So don't tell them something different from what you are really planning to record and to publish. Ethical behavior already starts before you start your fieldwork. It starts in the moment of preparation. So if you get in touch with participants, with field participants, with future research respondents, with experts, or other interviewees, so be clear and explain them about your project and also explain them what kind of observation and recording you are planning to conduct, and tell them also about their rights. So tell them what is possible, in which way they can participate, and inform them also about their right, for example, to be part of a recording or to influence what will be published. So this is something crucial, and this is something that you should keep absolutely in mind. To get one step ahead, I would like to introduce some, let's say, golden rules. So first, an issue which I already mentioned. So no hidden, no covered observation or documentation or recording. This is crucial because otherwise the people can feel bad. They will think and they will have they will be under the impression that they are part of something that they actually did not permit. And maybe this kind of observation also changes their behavior. And well, this is something which they should have under control. This is their personal right to control and to know what is published, independent of the type of source, independent if they appear on a photo, on a recording, or if it is a written transcription of an interview, for example, that you conducted with them. So there are several possibilities of how to make somebody appear in your research project. And well, this is very important that you at any moment keep them informed, and not only after recording, but really before you start. So explain them what you want to do and then ask them for their permission. We also will get to this point a little bit later of how to formalize this permission, but already keep this in mind. Then, the point which is related is the respect, so the moral behavior, that the participant is the only person to decide if he and if and how she or he will appear in your research, will be recorded, or if he or she what can be published, basically. This is basically a personal right which which owns every of the participants. Then you also should keep them informed about what kind of material do you plan to publish. So not any source which you record will be necessarily enter in the publishing. So this is also something which you should inform in advance. For example, if you conduct case studies and case study examples, then tell them if they are okay that you use this or that example from their work or from a certain situation or whatever in the context of your study. And if you keep it for a later analysis, well, just tell them what will happen with the material. Now we will get to the next point, which is the question of how to approach correctly. So before the start, be aware of the type of data sets which you want to gather. So are we talking about interviews? Are we talking about photos, videos, sound files? Are we talking about further sources? Whatever. This is already something that you should keep in mind and that should be clear to you. And when you approach to the participants, then explain them what you plan to do with this material, which situation in particular do you aim to record, and also why. So here we are getting back to the question of why is something important, what happens with the information, and which part do you want to publish, and also in which way. Because it is also a difference, for example, if somebody appears in a video, or if you publish a sound file with the voice of this person, or if it is, for example, an interview that you will transcribe and where you only will publish the written text, for example, the answer, where you can anonymize the participant, something which is not really possible if you have a video sequence. So you see, it is also an issue of what kind of source you aim to gather and in which form it will be published. Then, if it comes to the written form and the preparatives of, in not only in a oral way, but also something, written and formal. Here you should be sure if you can reach out for an research ethics form and also to firm an ethical approval first by yourself and then also by your research participants. This is the issue of the written form is also something which can which can create a little bit of confidence between your participants. Because if you come up with a formal document, well, there are two sides of the story. We will have a look at each of them, but normally it is kind of security and it makes them also feel safer if you don't come up only with spoken words, but also with a firm written document where they know exactly what kind of rights they have and that they are the ones who have the control over the material and over what you will publish or not. After all, if it comes to the moment of editing, then yes, it is important that you keep in constant dialogue with the related research respondents and participants and to transmit confidence. How do you do that? Well, this is easy. Just let them take part in the decision. So share the material with them. There, it is not important if you send it by email, for example, or if you share a folder with them where they can put comments. Well, however, but important is that they have access to all the material and that they can have a look, a quiet look, so that they really can do it when they feel comfortable and have the moment and calm to do it. So don't stress them out with time pressure. Send it and, keep them informed about the time that they have to revise and to provide you with a feedback. So ask them, to keep you informed about what you can keep. If there are sequences or passages that you need to cut out or to shorten, if there are at least some details that you need to take out. Also, if they have a problem with publishing of their real names, and tell them about the possibility of anonymize their names. We have several ways of how to do that. And if you already have a selection of the material that you aim to publish, then provide them directly with this material where they appear, and well, just ask them to provide you with a feedback. This is important. And this really transmits confidence from their side. This makes both sides able to feel confident and to feel safe. It is, after all, also important for you because, well, imagine that you also are dependent to them and you don't want them to get into uncomfortable situations or even to slip into difficulties or whatever. And sometimes, if you are, well, especially if you are coming from the outside and you have you have a kind of external uh, objective look at the situation, then it is very difficult to know what is in their interest because there are some details which you don't consider in the same way to be problematic as they do. That's why it is so important to get the feedback and to be sure that they are okay with the selection of material and that all participants are okay with the sequences and passages which will be published. So, as a next point, we will have a closer look and focus on the relationship between you and your participants. So, to get a feeling and to be sensible of what is in their interest, it is important that you know exactly how to interact with them, also how to inform them, because the way of how to approach and how to inform them, and after all the question of how to formalize the relationship and the question of of publication and of uh, how to deal with the sources and, well, even of the research participation is something that is also very uh, dependent to the context and which is treated a little bit different in relation to, well, or dependent to the culture that you are investigating. Last but not least, we also want to focus on the anonymization. So, how to deal with the question if a research participant or an interviewee or, well, doesn't want to appear, doesn't want to be named, or at least asks you to take out his or her official name, his real name. So, how can we do this? Well, first, a little overview where participants appear and where is it, how is it possible to anonymize? So, they can, well, first, they can appear in interviews. So, if you conduct an interview, a survey, if you want to enter some direct or indirect quote from them, and also if you have joint interviews and recorded events. So, for example, if you conducted an interview not only with a single person, with a single participant, but a collective interview, for example. This is also possible. So, how can you deal with that? Well, sure, if we are talking of a video sequence, then things become more difficult because it is very difficult to leave some person out and have the others in. So we are, well, this if really one person asks you to respect that he or she doesn't want to appear in a video, then, well, this is something that you should absolutely respect. And, well, if it comes to the written form, so to the interviews, the surveys, the quotation, then things are a little bit easier because here we can benefit from different ways of anonymization. For example, one possibility is that you use fictive names or changed names. So this means that you don't provide the real name of the person, but where you keep the quote, the the passage as it is. You keep everything exactly like the person explained it to you. But you can say, for example, you can invent a name, and in brackets you can put changed name or fictive name or whatever, like what I wrote here, name changed, just to make clear for everybody that this is not the real name of this person, but that, well, it is kind of anonymization. And, well, then you also can handle it in a different way. So, for example, you can use attributes, professions, positions, whatever. You can even use numbers. So, for example, you can put interview partner 1, or you can also put a related name, well, something related to the profession of the person. For example, if we are talking of a group, then you also should differ between the participants of the group. For example, you can put I don't know, composer or architect or whatever. One for group 1 and 2 for the person, like the second participant from the first group of architects that you asked and interviewed. This is also a possibility of how to anonymize. So here you can see a concrete example from my own dissertation. So here you can see this is this was an extract, a passage from a composer's session. And you can see that here, for example, I used in bold letters, I didn't use the real names, but I put here, the short form of composer. And here it starts with composer 2 from the first group, then comes the first, then the third. So I provided the dialogue exactly as as it was in reality, and to make the people know which person of the group is interacting and participating, or entering an idea, whatever. I provided these short forms. Then we have a second example. The second and a third. This is not actually from a joint session or from a collective interview, but this passage is from one single person. And as you see here, so it is important that you already also inform about the date and the place of recording. So the related information should be there, yes or yes. But when it comes to the name and there is some sensible, some delicate issue, and the person asks you for what reason ever that he or she want to keep anonymous to, don't get in trouble, then you can also put, for example, anonymous composer, anonymous informant, anonymous artist or architect or whatever whatever it is. And the second example, this is an example of how you can deal with changed names. So here, in fact, you also have the related information, you have the date of recording, you have the place of recording, and you have a name, but in brackets, you can see that the name was changed, so that it is a fictive name. This is how we can deal with that. Well, now we will get right to the core of of ethical behavior and of the so-called sensitive areas, because if you are dealing with data from these areas, then you should pay double attention to the ethical and to the moral aspect and how to protect the related informants and research participants. So you should absolutely pay attention to the sensible data, because you need to protect the personal rights of the participant. And well, after all, it is very important if it comes to still living persons. So persons who are working with you and who are participating in research about a delicate aspect. And well, if it is published, if your work is published and anybody from this related area gets to know that this person provided you with one or another information, well, there can be very difficult and problematic situations for these people. So here you should keep very alert, and you should pay double and triple attention to protect them and their personal rights. So what exactly are we talking about? Which are these areas and domains where you need to pay special attention if you enter the field, if you record and collect data? So first, if you need to pay attention, depends to the nature of the event. It also depends to the specific context and related environment. And there are also further issues, for example, like economic reasons or political aspects or even personal motives, which can be varied. So the first sector and domain are the areas of secret context or secret knowledge and related events which are normally closed to public. So events which are which are practiced and realized in a kind of hidden context and form, and where it is not common to let outsiders participate. This is especially the area of rituals, also of religious rituals and ceremonies, but this can also be some secret traditions, for example, which are close to public. And there's another type, which is the artistic process. So, for example, a process of creative production, which takes place for a certain reason. Then it is also the health sector. So if there is some investigation about illness, and it is also, there are also the fields which are dealing with money, with politics, and after all, with illegal issues, such as crime, such as gambling, such as violence, or well, things like that. I think you have an idea. And then there is another sector, which are the sensible events from recent history. For example, if there is some discussion where this is normally related to politics, but if it comes to recent history and for example, you conduct an interview with somebody who participated or who was involved with something illegal, or has a family member which was involved with some illegal issues, or something referring to wars or whatever. And this person reveals some secrets about this issue. And it is about a still living person, or if this person, which is in the center of the attention, still has family members and all of the stuff, then this is something, something very delicate. And the same goes with the issue of illegal aspects of crime, of politics, of corruption, for example, also of violence, and well, after all, also when it comes to investigations in the health sector. So this is a kind of overview on on the related sensitive areas. Sure, there are more, and I want to show you some examples on the example of my own fieldwork to make you a little bit sensible for this issue. But well, here you already have an idea of what is or what can be difficult and what has to be treated with caution. So here, for example, you have I put a photo from a prized, Canomble prized. So here, this is a photo which I recorded during my fieldwork in Bahia in 2010. And this is an example of a religious context and ceremony. So here we are talking about a religious area. So the ceremonies and rituals which are taking place are normally closed to public, and they are only open to the persons who are part of this community. So here, for example, if you are dealing with religion and with this stuff, you should inform yourself in advance if you are participating, or if something that you record is secret, or simply get in touch and get in dialogue with the people to find out what is in their interest and where you participate, for for example, or where you document, where you record some issues which are not really for publication. And anyway, you can write about your observation, even though you should confirm this information also with the participants. It is not only about recording and about showing a video sequence or whatever, but it is also about publishing secret information. So information which should not be open to public. So this is one example. So the religious context, the canon bleu is one of them, but there are various. So well, this is one possibility. Then we also have another sensible area, which is, for example, which is also closed to public. Here you have a photo from the fieldwork in a favela. And well, if we are talking of favelas, then here we also have some sensible issues. After all, when it comes also to the question of of politics, of a certain corruption, also of difficulties of the daily life, even of of financial issues, of crime. Well, all of this is something which is related to this domain, and where you also, if you are working with an area like this, then you need to pay special attention. And if the people have the trust and comment some issues which are maybe not legal, then then you need to confirm in advance and to stay in dialogue to know if you can publish an information or not, or in which form. And well, the third example, which you can see here, is also from my fieldwork. As I said, or as you already know, I was dealing with the creative process. And this, arts and creative processes which are closed to public are a little bit similar to, for example, to the example of religious rituals, which you have seen as the first example. Why? Because there are some factors involved. First of all, the artistic process is something very personal, and it is also something which is a kind of a personal strategy, a personal way of how to create arts, in this case music, so music and text. But it is also, when it comes to the summer schools, for example, then you also have some political and some economical issues which are part of the story. So for the people, it is how can I say, for example, you have some sessions where participants of the collectives are part of the session, which in theory cannot be part, or at least it is not permitted that they participate in different groups. So, for example, if they appear in one group and the next day you can see them in another group, then this is something which can cause problems. To give you an example, another question in this related area is also the political and the economical background, because the composers need to pay an amount, or to invest a certain economic capital to have a chance to be successful in the competition, and the strategy of how to deal with the economical side, and also if there are some politics from the directors board, for example. This is also something which is already discussed in the sessions. That's why it is a little bit difficult to record, or to publish this kind of dialogue. These are some examples to give you an idea of what is sensible. And well, if it comes to the health sector, for example, and you have a person which is interviewed about an illness or a treatment and is suffering, well, or at least also when it comes to psychology, for example, and these kind of issues. So everything which is related to that is something where you should pay attention in advance and before you start to conduct the research. If we talk about challenging situations during fieldwork, then we should not only consider the sensible areas and the related challenges and difficulties, but also some personal dilemmas which can occur. Well, these aspects and dilemmas can occur in and out of the field. So, well, for sure, during fieldwork, so at the moment of conducting a fieldwork, but also long time after the fieldwork. So when the work and the research is already published. Here it is important to mention that unfortunately there is no recipe, like no universal solution for every challenge of fieldwork. Inside and outside of the field, but the ability to negotiate and to adapt to certain situations and to interact and solve some issues is up to the researcher, and also depends to the personal ability and also the manner of communication and of how to be transparent of every person. So even though there are some decisions which yes should be made before you start your fieldwork, some additional can come up at the moment and have to be solved spontaneously because they were not very previsible. Even though it is not a secret that things will get easier when you get to know the field, when you already learn how to interact and about the particularities of your field. And it is also helpful if you access to some literature about fieldwork and ethics, and also about ethical dilemmas, and learn from other researchers and get to know how they approached and how they solved one or another situation. One of the most complicated issues is the question of loyalty. As you know, when we conduct a research project, we are naturally at the search for truth, also for naturalistic data, for natural situations and occurrences, and after all, for a certain authenticity. So we want to record and we want to get to know a real situation. We want to know the reality and not a kind of fake story. This often goes together with certain ethical challenges and dilemmas. After all, in the sensible areas, that I presented to you. So, to introduce this part, I want to make you alert of what kind of question is related to loyalty and why is it a difficult issue. And after all, what significates loyalty at fieldwork? First, it is the question, what if you observe illegal behavior which is in conflict with the law? This can be crime, violence, also other kinds of illegal acts, for example, gambling, corruption, some political stuff, some acts which are against law, and so on. So how do you deal with this kind of information? Then it can also refer to another thing. So what if you get some information which can affect a participant's liberty, reputation, or even emotions and feelings? This is also an important point and a conflict. Mainly between the researcher and himself. And last but not least, what if you get some informal information which brings you in conflict with yourself? This is basically about knowledge from covered observation, for example, which you collected in a kind of illegal act, and so you are not really free to publish this knowledge. What about dirty data? We will come to this point of what means dirty data. And what about informal and secret information or even gossip? So how do you deal with this kind of information? Well, certainly there are some rules and some formal guidelines which you should follow to be on a safe site. But once again, there is no universal solution. And if you will publish and if you will integrate one or another situation and publish this information in your research, and even, for example, if we are talking about illegal behavior and stuff which can affect a participant, then last but not least, it is a little bit a question of balance, also a question of trust in your ability to justify a certain situation. It is your duty to take care of your participants and of their well-being. And last but not least, it is also the morality when it comes to these aspects which can bring your informants in a kind of difficult situation. Then it is at least up to the researcher and to the own consciousness and morality if he feels more connected to the participant or even to the external society. So, yeah, after all, it is really a question of yourself and of your, uh, yeah, of your relationship to your research participants. Well, to get a little bit into the direction of how to formalize all this question of ethics, of research ethics, well, I would like to present you some milestones from the history and give you a little overview. So, as you see, the discussion about declaration of the principles of professional responsibility and the first resolution on ethics already came up and was declared in 1971. So in the 70s was the time when this discussion came up and um, got into the consciousness of the researchers. In 1979, the Belmont report, a template was developed which proposes three main ethical principles which should guide any kind of research. So, which should be respected and which should be fulfilled during every research which is conducted. So, this relates first to the respect for persons, second to the beneficence, and third to the justice. And here is also important that the US government requires, after all the federal funded universities to establish a kind of institutional review and provide the research ethics form where this can be different models, but after all, they should require a research ethics form from all the researchers to make sure that they behave moral and transparent and adapt the ethical norms, which are the fundament of our transparent and ethical behavior. So now that we know a couple of things about the ethical principles and, the focus on transparency, I would like to get a little bit into detail and provide some definitions of what exactly means the respect for persons, the beneficence, and the justice, which are the three ethical principles. So, this are some definitions, some extracts from Ethics in Ethnographic Fieldwork from 2000. And here it is defined as the following. First, the respect for persons means that people have the right to choose whether to participate in research. And as an important additional point, there's added that vulnerable persons with diminished capacity, such as children, prisoners, and poor people, must be protected from exploitation. This is very important because the vulnerable persons, have more debilities, and so they need to be protected in a specific way. What is very important is also that the information should take place in their language. So don't come up with a form or, even an oral consent in another language where you are not really sure if they get all the details, if they clearly understand about their rights, and well, that it is absolutely their choice to participate, and well, that they also need to be informed about the future work, for example, that you will discuss the the material that will be published, that they can decide about sequences where they appear, for example, or passages where they are cited. So everything of that stuff, all the details need to be clear to them, and you should provide the information in their local language. Second, the beneficence. So, beneficence is defined in terms of the principle do not harm by maximizing possible benefits and minimizing the risk to both participants and to the society at large. This is the second main principle. And as the third, we have the justice. Justice requires answering the question who ought to receive the benefits from research and bear the burdens. That means that subjects should be selected in a way which guarantees that no one or group bears the risks or benefits of participation on their own. So this is also very important, that there is a balance between the benefits and the risks, and that you don't leave the benefits of participation or the risks, on the other hand, to one person or to a certain group, whatever. So this is how the three ethical principles are defined. This is what it means in practice. And well, now I would like to go a little bit ahead in terms of the history, because as another kind of milestone, there emerged specific debates on research ethics and the ethical approach, more or less in 2000, so in the new millennium. And well, this started basically with a kind of scandal. There was the publication of Darkness in El Dorado by Tyranny, which thematized how anthropologists were working among Amazonian people and violated human rights. And this was a kind of starting point, and inspired and led to various debates and discussions, and also caused a new sensibility for the aspect of research ethics. So this scandal, this publication, inspired volumes on ethics and ethical aspects. For example, The Ethics of Anthropology by Kaplan from 2003, or also The Ethics and the Profession of Anthropology by Fleur-Lobben, also from 2003, or also the publication Lost in Paradise from 2004. And it also led to the following debates, to new debates, after all, on the possibility of ethical and ethically orientated research programs, such as discussed and published in leading journals, for example, in the British Journal of Sociology or in the social forces. Well, as you can already see, the researchers became step by step aware and sensible for their own responsibility and also their position in the field. And they started to reflect on their behavior and also became aware of the fact that they are acting, yeah, uh, from a subjective way and subjective position. So another point was, well, that the manner of how to act and also the failing in certain situations are really, yeah, something that they should keep in mind, that they should be aware that it can happen, and that this is also their own responsibility. So, for example, Nancy Sherpa Hughes from the University of California wrote a contribution to the volume Forum for Anthropology and Cultures on the subjectivity of the researcher in 2006. And here she wrote, for example, the anthropologist is accountable for what she sees and for what he or she fails to see, how he or she acts, and how he or she fails to act in critical situations. So, step by step, the anthropologists became aware of their own position and also of what can go wrong and, well, their own responsibility if something goes wrong. So here you can see how the researchers and experts became step by step aware of the situation and sensible for their responsibility and also for their own, yeah, subjectivity and consequences of behavior. Here, for example, we have a quote from Nancy Sherpa Hughes from the University of California, from Berkeley, on the distinctive ethical responsibilities. This is her contribution to the volume Forum for Anthropology and Cultures on the subjectivity of the researcher from 2006. And here she writes the following: the anthropologist is accountable for what he sees and for what he fails to see, how he acts and how he fails to act in critical situations. So here it gets very clear that, yeah, a lot of responsibility during the research and also the outcome, the ethical approach, is up to the anthropologist, to the researcher, and he is the only person who is responsibility for things that will be exposed to the or exhibited to the public, and, well, also, yeah, that his perspective and his approach and his way of how to conduct the research is in a certain way responsible not only for the outcome but also, yeah, as she puts it, what he sees and what he fails to see. So the details are, last but not least, also dependent on his subjective perspective. And, well, this does not only refer to the fact of seeing something with conscience or acting in a certain way, but also the failure and also the behavior, and to behave right or wrong in a critical situation. Even though critical situations are not not at any time something that you should or you can know before, but critical situations also can occur spontaneously. And here it is up to the researcher and also, well, even though his responsibility to react in how can I say react in a correct way. And even if a situation is critical and needs a solution, then even though the researcher should follow on some principles and don't leave the ethics and the ethical aspect beside. Now we will get over to the point of how to formalize, how to deal with a consent, how to find a consent with your research participants. And last but not least, how to make them feel safe and how to make yourself as a researcher also feel comfortable with the information and to get a certain security and confidence about the project and all the different steps. So this concerns the preparation, the data collection and recording. It also concerns the time after your fieldwork, the moment of editing and publishing, and last but not least, the whole process of interacting with your research participants. So the best forum of how to arrive to this trust and confidence from both sides is a signed research ethics form or ethical approval, which is also required from nearly every university. Now we will get into this point and we will see what the ethical approval is, what types of research ethic forms exist, and how you can deal with the question of finding and signing a consent with your research participants. So let's start at the beginning of the story. So first, we want to know what the research ethics form consists of, who has to be mentioned, and also in which way. So who has to be mentioned, also which details are necessary to explain about the researchers. This can be you. This can also be your colleagues if there are more researchers involved in the project. And well, we want to know and approach the ethical approval from different perspectives. So the research ethics form, first of all, is the principal approval on ethical behavior and declares the transparent and correct behavior with all your participants and with the collected and recorded material. So this is, in a nutshell, what the ethical approval and the form consists of and is made for. Now, well, you have a number of possibilities when it comes to the question of the informed and the formal consent. As you probably know, the most usual form of all is a signed document, so a signed research ethics form, which is signed, which is simply the consent form, and which is signed from both sides. So the declaration about the detail that we will look up is made by the researcher and has to be transmitted and explained to every of the research participants. And well, this normally takes place in a written form. So, well, there is the document which informs the participants in their language, or at least in a language that they clearly understand. Yeah, about the details of the research and also of the fact that their participation is voluntary. This is very important. So it further declares informs that they have the right to review all relevant passages, to decide on the publication of sequences and passages where they appear. They also get informed that they can decide about on the form and the name under which they will appear in a publication, and if they at least will or want to appear in your research and the related book or paper or whatever it is. Caution, here enters another issue. As you see, as a second point in the table, there is also the possibility of an oral consent. The oral consent, in opposite to the written, which is the usual and like the official document, needs a justification. So if you only get into an oral consent with the participants, you need to justify why you don't have a written, an informed consent, so a written document, and you need to make it clear, why you only have this oral form. This can have a number of reasons. For example, there are some cultures, there are some people which, or some cultural context where it is not habitual to firm official documents, which, they don't feel comfortable with this. It is not part of their habit, of their costumes. And one possibility, one justification of arriving to an oral consent instead of an informed is, for example, that in certain cultural contexts, signing forms is a problematic issue and can cause a loss of trust. And this is not, after all, what we want. So the kind and the form of the consent is related and depends to the culture and the people that you're working with. This is also something that you really need to explain or to justify dependent to the chosen format. Then there's also another point which is a little bit, problematic or difficult, which is the sustaining consent. Sustainable means that consent is long-term valid. For example, if you conduct a fieldwork over a long-term period, then it is also important that the participants who appear over the time are okay with being recorded and with appearing, with participating over all the time period. This is something where you need to negotiate a little bit because, well, you cannot renew the consent every day. This is something that in practice simply isn't possible. So you need to make sure how you can succeed this sustainability and the sustaining consent. For example, what you can do in this case is that you sign the form before you start to conduct the research, and then you choose certain moments after a little time or in regular periods where you renew. And last but not least, it is also important that you have an ultimate consent, which is towards the end. So when it comes to the last step, to the post process and to the editing and publishing. Well, let's get to the written type, so to the ethical, to the research ethics form. This is normally a document which is filled out and signed before you go on a fieldwork, and which you may take with you, because sometimes it is, if you are already in contact with some participants before you start the fieldwork and before you get to your place of fieldwork, then yes, it is possible that you sign this form before. For example, you can send it by email or whatever, and they can already have a look at it. They can verify if there are some open questions or if they have any doubts. And this is absolutely possible. And otherwise, it is also possible that you sign the form with them directly at fieldwork. So if you get in contact with new research participants, for example, and when you start your work with them, this is the moment to sign the form and to inform them about their rights. You should verify and you should have a look at the page of your department and consult this issue with your university, because most of the universities already provide a blank form. This can be different, and the different universities and research institutions have their own model of such a form. And have a look at the guidelines, because most of the universities require a completed version, or before you go on the fieldwork. This is also dependent on your project, or at least before or at the moment of the submission of your thesis. And otherwise, if there are no blank forms, if there are no templates, then you can also design a version on your own, or you can have a look at the different downloadable files and templates. I also will show you how to find these templates, and I will provide you some models in the related material to this course. So there are some information if you decide to design a version by yourself. Then there is a number of issues that need to be declared, and it should enable a complete image of your and give an impression of your research, of the intention also, and contain all required information, which you also can find in the different forms. So if we are talking about a form, then I would like to give you some ideas of what such a form contains. After all, this is interesting for the case that you will develop such a document on your own. First, it is important that there is an unmistakable clarification of the exploration at the degree of comprehension for forthcoming members. Then it is also crucial that your document, your writing, gives a brief and plain language title for the examination venture. And all the participating investigators and researchers need to be mentioned and need to appear in the documents. And well, if it is only you, then things are clear. But if there are also some participating scientists, or if you conduct the research with an examination group or whatever, then this is also something that should be mentioned here. To put it in a nutshell, what is of capital importance? First, it is it is crucial that you use a clear and a simple language, and also unmistakable vocabulary, terms, and expressions. This is important because, well, this document is not only from academic value, but this is also something that you will provide for the participants of your research. And well, here it is very important that you don't use a complex academic language, but that they get at the first glance what is important. And so do yourself and do them a favor and make it really understandable, comprehensive, and keep language issues simple. Don't put some expressions or specific vocabulary where they don't know what you are even talking about. Otherwise, well, it can result in a in complication. It can result in mistrust or whatever, and this is something that we don't want at all. So keep it easy, keep it simple. Along with the use of vocabulary and the type of language which you should use, goes also the structure of your sentences. So try to formulate short and precise descriptions. So do it really on the point, and well, explain in an easy way how you will handle the information and how you justify your project. Then a very important point, which absolutely should be mentioned, is also the contribution to be made. So in another part, we already had the question of the research participants, well, in the part of the practical fieldwork, and we already discussed the issue of the importance and the question of what will they ask you if you come up with a project. And one of the most important question, and well, also one frequently asked question, was, why does it matter? So simple, but you need to have a good answer on this. And the best way to answer this question is also to explain the contribution, to explain the importance and what exactly is important, or to put it another way, why does it matter? And this is also important for your participants. You need to explain the advantages and the benefits for them if they decide to participate. So these are some aspects and some issues which should enter anyway. Well, now I have some aspects more to be clarified in an ethical form. So here, apart from what we already discussed, you also should name the participants. You also should keep their right to pull their participation back as a crucial issue. As you remember, the respect for persons contains the issue that the person can decide voluntary if he or she wants to participate, and also in which frame or which extent. And here also enters another point, which is the sustainability. Because if a person decides to participate and after a few weeks, for example, or even, well, more time, this person decides that he wants to pull back, that he don't want to publish any information, or that he or she simply stops the work and the participation, then this is also something that you should absolutely respect. So the participant is the only person to decide if and in which form and extent he or she wants to appear. And if for any reason and at any moment the person decides to pull himself or herself back from the research, then this is also something that the researcher need to respect. That's why it is always a good idea to have it in a signed form and in a written form from the start as a point in your document. And this is also something that will cause and that will succeed the trust of your participant. Related to this aspect, you also can get to a consent when it comes to the maintenance of information in case of pulling back. So if we imagine this situation, for example, one of the participants decide that he or she in a certain moment will give up their participation, then you also should know or should succeed consent of what happens with the information that you already recorded or collected from this person. What happens if you, if you can keep this information, if you can use it for later analysis, or if the person wants you to keep all the information which are related to him or her out of the project. This is also something that you should clarify in advance if possible. And then there are two aspects about the advantages. So here you also should keep clear what is the advantage or the benefit for the individual and also for a related society. This is, more or less about the contribution and, also about what you can do and what your project can do for the people, for the participants and their culture or society. Yeah. As we are dealing with the aspects that have to be clarified in an ethical form, I also would like to provide some official definitions. So here we have at least, we have 5 points which are formulated like them. So if you are searching on about the aspects to be clarified in such a form, then you will find as an important, as an important aspect that it should be clarified how forthcoming members have been recognized and chosen for contact concerning potential enlistment. So this is an aspect that you need to keep clear. After all, for the university or for your research institution. So here you need to justify the the process of of getting in contact, of choosing the participants and of getting in contact with them. So why them and how did you arrive there? Then it should also be clarified that investment in the exploration venture is altogether deliberate, and also that if the individual agrees to take an interest in the exploration venture, they reserve the privilege to pull back whenever without a need to clarify why and without. So this is what we already discussed. So the person, somebody who takes part and who declares that he or she will help you and will participate in the research at every moment has the right to pull back. And it is not necessary that this person explains why. It is up to the person and it is just the yes or no. But the person isn't, there is no obligation in explaining and clarifying why the person pulls back. Yeah, then we have 2 points left. There is one point which is also related to the issue of pulling back. So it needs to be clarified that if a member pulls back, their data or information will likewise be pulled back from the venture, except if they agree to your maintenance of the information and data. Or except if in the wake of disclosing the conditions to them, the information can't be pulled back because, for instance, it can't be distinguished or extricated from the more extensive assortment of research information or data that has been gathered. So, what does this mean? Here, yeah, we are dealing once again with the question of pulling back, because this is really one of the most delicate. What happens to the material? And this aspect is, yeah, something that we already focused on. So you should uh, inform about what happens with the data, and that you keep the data out if someone pulls back, or if he or she agrees on the maintenance, then you are allowed to continue the work with this data. So the only exception when it comes to the point of maintenance and treatment of data or data sets from a person which pulled back the participants, then yeah, the only exception is if you recorded and assembled the information in a kind of way and in a format where it is not possible to separate these data from the rest. If it is kind of yeah, if it is part of a greater selection and it cannot be separated at all. As a last point, you have the clarification. Yeah, you need to clarify potential advantages of the exploration for the individual as well as for the society. So these points are more or less what we discussed in a brief way, and here you have the official formulation. So when it comes to the main issues to be justified, so here are also a couple of things that you should include in your research ethics form. So first, we deal with the information, with the type of information, and you should make clear which type or types and formats you want together. So which type of information is concerned. Then you also need to justify the secrecy with which the information will be put away. You also need to make your reasons for gathering this information clear. And then you should inform about how the information will be gathered. So, is it recognizable? Is it non-recognizable? Or is it re-recognizable? After all, you also need to inform about the employments of information and the levels of conglomeration. Yeah, to get on with this issue, there are some additional aspects. For example, you need to keep clear who can approach to the information. For example, if the information and in which way the information will be published and will be open to public or not. And you also need to inform about the removal of information and when this will happen, and also how the removal of information will happen. So these are some things, the treatment and what happens to this information, how they will be yeah, opened and how they will be distributed and be made accessible to different groups of persons or institutions. This should be something that you need to uh, yeah, need to be sure about in advance, and that you need to clarify in the research ethics form. Then you also should define the goals and the potential for the production of information, and how and where the extent of information will be put away. Yeah. Last but not least, you also should add one or another sentence on the issue of for to what extent will information be put away. Like if you only discuss the details and provide the details in a brief form, or if it is in a in-depth analytical way, and well, so on. So you should really inform about the different approaches and the different goals and treatment of information and the extent of the extent of their the extent in which they will be put away. So before we will finish this class in this module, I would like to provide an example and show you in a very concrete way how a research ethics form can look like, and well, how is it made of. So here we have an example from of an ethical approval from the University of Utrecht from the Netherlands. And here, well, it consists of 3 pages and an additional declaration which must be signed from the researcher. So if you have a look at this form, then you can already get an idea of what is expected. So you can see that it starts with some general information, like you have to provide a title, and well, you also need to provide some personal information. There will also be a reference number and so on. So these are more or less, some formalities. Then it starts with an introduction. There you need to specify that the participant is being asked to take part in scientific research. So after all, that you informed him, that you spoke and got in dialogue with the person, and well, that you informed him that the research will be conducted, and also if your study has been reviewed by an ethics committee. This is, well, the first part, the introduction. Then you also need to clarify the background and the purpose of your study. So you should provide a short description of your research project in a clear and simple language. Yeah, here written is plain language, as you already know. And you also need to inform if your study is funded by external parties. So if so, you need to concrete and to specify the details of this funding. Then you also need to explain how, well, first, who the study will be carried out. So you need to provide a description of the research team, or if it is only you, then you also need to specify. And well, as you can see, you also should write who is the data controller, and not you don't only need to provide the names and also the name of a supervisor, or yeah, if it is for the whole team, then the chief investigator, but you also need to provide contact. So in this case, an email address where someone from the committee, for example, can get in touch with you if there are further questions. And then, as a fourth aspect, you need to provide a description of how the study will be carried out. So here you can see that as a first point, you need to inform about the process and name everyone who is involved in the research, such as the participants, the informants, but also the observers, for example, and further interviewees or experts. Whoever takes part has to be named here. Then you should explain how long the study will take. So you need to inform about the time investment, also a time per session, per recorded session, the duration of focus group, etc. So you need to clarify if you are conducting a long-term fieldwork or if it is punctual, and if so, then you need to declare and explain the episodes and periods of your fieldwork. So all the details which are about the process and about the time issue. Then you also need to define the compensation of the participants. So if they are compensated in any kind of way, and also for what, and if if they are compensated in an economic and financial way, then how much, or if it is another kind of compensation, then what form. So you really need to explain the compensation and the different ways of compensation of the participants. Well, as a fifth point, here enters an important aspect, namely the clarification of what will happen with your data. So here, after all, you need to describe the different types of data that you will collect from participants. So if we are talking about audio files, about video recordings, about photographs, or further ways of documentation and material. And here you will have first to list the different sources and the different types of sources. And then you also will need to describe for each type of data, like how long the data will be retained. So how long and in what form also. This is something which is important, not only for the information of the participants, but also for the committee, for the ethics committee. And you also need to concrete if you are collaborating with an external company or an external organization. This is similar to the question of funding, because this can also influence the the process of of collecting and retaining the data, and also the process of the treatment of your data. Last but not least, here is also important to describe what data you intend to share with third parties. For example, if you are collaborating with an external organization or company or institution, then their access to the data or to the different kind of data collections should be clarified here. And then you can see as a 6th and a 7th point, first, the specification of the rights. So here you must specify that you will be collecting and processing data on the basis of participants' consent. And you also need to declare that the participation is voluntary. So this is basically what we discussed at the moment of the different forms of consent which you sign which you sign with the participants, and where the participants also get informed about the voluntary nature of the participation, and additionally also about their rights. So then you have the approval of the study, and here, namely, you need to specify that the study already has been approved by the Faculty Ethics Assessment Committee, and you also declare that you informed the participants or their representatives about the right to submit further questions. Yeah, as the 8th and the 9th issue, well, first you can provide, or you need to provide further information about the study. For example, your name and your email address. Well, some dates, some information about you. And this information also must be provided to enable the participants to ask questions and also to obtain additional information during, before, and after the study. This is important. This is also something that not only should appear here in the ethical approval, but this is something that you already should take care of by yourself. So you need to enable the research participants to get in contact with you at any moment. Because last but not least, it is about them, and it is even possible that some questions or some issues appear long time after the study and after the fieldwork. And as a last point, you have the appendix. So if you need to include any related material or any further documents, yeah, then you can provide and yeah, specify these documents already here. And they also ask you to include a declaration of consent as a part of information and inform about everything that you provided, all the information and details which you provided to the participant. So then in addition, you have the declaration of consent for the participant. So this is a document which also can serve for, yeah, as a template for you. And here you can see, yeah, that the participant needs to sign the form, and you can see all the details which he or she needs to know in advance and also to confirm. Yeah, and then you can see here that there are also other possibilities of how such a form can look like. This is another example, another template from a university research ethics application form, as it is the full name, in this case, from the University of Sheffield. And here you can also see, well, that some parts are similar. Well, this is the first page. Basically, yeah, you have the information on the research, a research title, also a contact person. So you have to name the principal investigator, but you also should include the related researchers or the researchers who are part of the group. And well, then you should first provide all the details about the responsible person, the responsible investigator. So the title, the first name and last name, also the affiliation, the department, the email and telephone as the essential contact details. You also need to clarify if it is a postgraduate research project. Well, and if so, then you should also provide the contact of the supervisor. And well, then you see that this kind of form is a little bit different. So here you also have yeah, options to choose. And well, starting with the project duration, and then you can choose whatever fits for you and your project. Well, I also will provide some further resources to give you other ideas of how these application forms and the research ethics form can look like, because it really can have different formats. And after all, I think that you have a clear idea of what should be, or which type of information and which details should be provided, yes or yes, to make it complete and convincing. As I said, it is also possible to design a form, but keep an eye on that. Yeah, and have a look at the guidelines and at the forms of your university, because many universities, as I already mentioned, also provide templates for their students. So caution with that. And yeah, otherwise, I also will provide some templates and add some resources and recommendations of templates and blank forms that can serve you if you want to create yours. Before we arrive to the summary of this module, I would like to take the chance and recommend some lectures and some publications on fieldwork ethics. This is really a delicate issue, as I mentioned in the beginning of this section. So, as you can imagine, every field has its particularities. It is similar to the issue of how to conduct your fieldwork, because you are interacting with the people and you need to adapt, you need to find out which type of consent you can succeed with them, and what is possible, what is also fitting with the habits. If we think about a written form, a written document, or an oral consent, for example. But the most important thing is that you are sensible and that you also have the consciousness and know about your responsibility. After all, in ethical and moral issues. At the end, you are responsible for the data, for the kind of conducting your fieldwork, and to treat the trust and the confidence that they have with you really with caution. So as you see here, I provide some lectures that will take you a little bit more to the question of the ethical issues, that also present some challenges and difficulties and illuminate aspects of ethics and morals. So first, I would like to provide an extract from Triste Tropics from Claude Lévi-Strauss from 1992, which is really kind of fieldwork classic, and which is already dealing with this kind of ethical issues. Then we also have a passage from Ethnography in the Forest, an analysis of ethics in the morals of anthropology from Castañeras from 2008, and additional one of the sensible areas, which is here discussed in the paper from Jun Lee, named Ethical Challenges in Participant Observation, a reflection on ethnographic fieldwork, also from 2008, and illuminating the different angles of gambling, of female gambling, which is also one delicate and sensible area. Well, now we are definitely reaching at the end of this class, and I would like to take the chance to review a little bit and recapitulate what you took from this 7th module. I know it was very, it was a very intense module, and we discussed the fieldwork from different perspectives and approaches. As you know, we started with a kind of historical overview and introduction on fieldwork and ethnography, and had a look at the profile, the motivation, the challenges, and also the instruments, like the technical devices of the first ethnographers. So we tried to approach from the historical side and the historical background. And then we approached step by step through the development and the technical evolution and, well, the progress to the reality, which we focused on in the second part when our topic was Welcome to Reality, how to conduct your fieldwork. And in this part, you learned about the different possibilities and natures of a field. So we basically discussed the different areas which can be a field in present for present fieldwork. We also discussed the formats and the possibilities of how to structure a fieldwork, and I made you familiar with the key aspects that you need to consider when you prepare a fieldwork. Also with the time factor, for example. So, what about the time? How do you know which conception and which format is fitting for you? Then we turned over to the reality and to the question of how do you conduct your fieldwork? So here you learned on different examples how to set up a research plan, how to take control of the environment, also on the different aspects which make part of the location, for example, and, well, the characteristics of the participants, of the environment. You also learned how to deal with technical devices and where you should press attention on. So, what is crucial when it comes to the moment of approaching your field, planning, and conducting your sessions? Then we also focused on the post processing, which is a point and an aspect which you should not underestimate. And here you learned how to deal with all of this. What is important to consider, and which kind of information and reflection you already should conserve right after fieldwork to serve to save precious time in a later moment. And last but not least, we discussed the challenges and dilemmas which can appear during fieldwork and conducting fieldwork and case studies is a process of trial and error. Yes or yes. And, well, the best teacher is the reality and is the field. But even though you can also prepare yourself in the best possible way if you already learn about issues and some general structures, also about the participants and their habits and costumes before you get before you are at the moment of recording. And, well, there are even also some challenges that that you need to solve spontaneously, because as we are dealing with daily life and also with the reality, it is not possible to plan everything in detail. I also shared my own experience and some examples of challenges which I had to face during my fieldwork. And I think you got quite a lot of information from this section. And well, then we came to the third section, which was about the ethical part and the ethical question and transparency of fieldwork. I tried to make you sensible for the correct behavior, which is one of the most important points when it comes to ethnography and to the conduction of empirical research in present days. So we discussed also the sensitive areas. We discussed what is difficult or which situations can be difficult, and also how do you deal with the research participants? How can you make them sure that their participation is safe, that they will not get in any kind of problems which is caused by the research or the publication? Here it doesn't matter if it is before, during, or even after your fieldwork. And as a last point, we discussed the research ethics form and the ethical approval, which is something that is required from the universities. After all, from the moment when the scandals on incorrect ethical behavior started and became more and more present and popular, then at least this was a moment of a turning point and a moment of reflection on the question of not only the position and the subjectivity of the researchers, but also about their responsibility in relation to everyone who participates in a research project. So we reached finally at the extensive finally we reached at the end of the 7th module. Now I think you are very well prepared for your fieldwork from the theoretical and also from the practical side, and even when it comes to the right ethical approach. And well, now we will get over to the question of how to transform your data sets in material that is for analysis, how to approach the selection of material, and also how can you succeed your academic style and improve your academic writing. So, see you in the next module.